Since the beginning of 2020, I've heard from a record number of people, more than ever, telling me that they finally realized that their government, their country, doesn't care about them. When times have been tough, when chaos has ensued, they've realized that the government won't be around to help them. So today, I'm going to share with you a number of reasons why I've believed for a long time the government just doesn't care. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson. I'm the author of this book, and here at Nomad Capitalist, we help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs legally go where you're treated best: lower taxes, second passports, asset protection, overseas investments. You can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. Now, let's put up on the screen. This is a tweet that came out a while ago. I've been saving this one from the mayor of Los Angeles, who's talking about, in apparently a perfectly serious tone, how during COVID, during the pandemic, a lot of people have economic hardship, and they're delivering assistance. And so guess what the assistance is? If you live in Los Angeles, or if you visit Los Angeles and you've gotten a parking ticket, they're going to give you a $20 discount if you pay within the first, I can't even keep a straight face, within the first 48 hours. Now, you would think, hey, why don't you give out fewer parking tickets? It's not like so many people in Los Angeles have been driving in the last year with all of the anti-freedom measures that have been going on in California, so much so that the people of California are now talking about recalling their governor. This is how tone deaf the government of Los Angeles and the governments of a lot of other places in the Western world are, where they literally think, hey, we're going to fine you. It's not enough we have the highest income taxes in the United States. It's not enough that when you add everything up in California, you are paying some of the highest taxes in the world and not getting nearly as much in return as someone in Denmark, for example, might be getting, or Sweden. But inspired by Los Angeles, I wanted to share with you some of the reasons why I've realized for a long time the government doesn't care about you. Now let's start with the last year. I remember when the pandemic first broke out, you had a lot of people who were on trips, who were living overseas, who were working overseas. And you look at just the United States, for example. One thing I've been saying for years, and people said, no, that can't be true, is when there's an emergency, the US government, and apparently most other governments, are not going to save you. Now, when I gave up my US citizenship, one of the things that some older people told me in my brain trust that I talked about before I did it was, don't you remember in Vietnam? I said, no, I don't. I was born in 1984. But he said, don't you remember in Vietnam when, they were coming in, they were taking the Americans out? Well, in this case, the Americans, the first ones in Wuhan, it was, hey, pay us and we'll get you a ticket on our plane, and, whenever it's available, it's available. And that happened time and time again. I was reading stories from South Africans, for example, who would be stuck on their honeymoon, for example, and they're saying, hey, we're renting a private jet, and it's $200,000, and as many of you want to leave the Maldives or Mauritius or whatever, hey, hop on board, we'll just divide by X. Now, do I think the government owes anybody anything? No, but I'm not the one saying that the government is never charging enough in tax, because we have to help people. And you would think if you cared about your citizens, you would want to help them escape deadly viruses, you would want to help them escape wars. That's not how it works. And just in my native US, the situation is you basically pay for a full fare economy ticket at the best case scenario, and they will, at their leisure, arrange a flight for you. And it's generally going to be, pooling a bunch of people together. So I hope you've got other people there suffering with you. Now, what we have as a result, of course, the pandemic, reason number 2, why the government doesn't care about you is, they function independently. They act like your money is their money. And so what are we seeing as a result of their mismanagement? They weren't prepared for this. They did not have the money set aside. They didn't have a rainy day fund. They're already deep in hawk, most of them. So what are they going to do now after all the expenses, because they weren't prepared from this pandemic? More taxes, wealth taxes. Some people are talking about higher capital gains taxes, higher income taxes, new taxes entirely. You're seeing countries talk about taxes they've never discussed before, even retroactive taxes. I've been saying all these are coming, and to be prepared for them, have things like second residences, second passports, offshore escape plans to be ready. This is not just going to target the rich. In the UK, they want a wealth tax on anyone with £500,000. If you live in a broom closet in London, you have £500,000. And so, we're seeing how the government, it's not like, hey, these people are suffering. The government only thinks about itself. They're not there to support you. Number 3, bad service. And again, we've seen this especially in the last year. Try going to an embassy to, get some kind of service. Try going to the passport office to renew your passport. Look at the last year. I had a deal with someone. We had a power of attorney, and for months could not renew their passport in the United States to even do the deal. Didn't even want to travel, just wanted to get a passport number to be able to do an international deal. So bad service. Now forget, hey, we're closed due to the pandemic. Now for some reason, we've seen situations like the U.S. embassies where they're open for normal business, they're serving themselves, they're taking their salaries. But if you as a U.S. citizen need certain services, you're out of luck, bad service. But when you can even get in, are they efficient? Sometimes I looked at, how long it would take someone to renew their passport. 10 weeks? How long does it take to print a passport? One of my countries, I can get it done in 4 hours. All right. Others are also, quick. And so what is it that takes them so long? We all know that the free market's more efficient than the government, but yet that's not the prevailing idea in the West. And yet that's why we're seeing the government be able to pawn off and say, hey, we'll give you a $20 discount on the parking ticket if you pay. And speaking of money, reason number 4, the government doesn't care about you. Look at what they've been doing to pay for all this stuff. Rampant inflation. You've seen, what percentage of the money supply has been increased in just the last 12 months alone? Inflation. You look at what happened with cryptocurrency, for example. Not so much with gold and precious metals, but look at what's happening with the US dollar especially, but a lot of fiat currencies. They are being printed. Inflation is going to be happening. Some people are talking about hyperinflation. We can all, have our own opinions on that. But does the government care that the value of your money is going down? People's salaries aren't keeping up. No, I've often said, is that the government's fault? I've said that that's the world is opening up and people like me are hiring in countries around the world. And therefore, an employer in the U.S. doesn't have to, keep pace as much. But the government's creating inflation. And then they go and they tell employers, people like me, why aren't you paying $15 an hour? Why aren't you paying more? Well, maybe if they didn't inflate the money supply so much, maybe people wouldn't have to pay more. So it's harder and harder for business owners to charge more for their services because perhaps in many cases their customers are struggling. But yet the power of inflation means the workers have to be paid more, business owners suffer. Does the government care? No. As long as they get their parking ticket money, they're perfectly happy. Reason number 5, also for entrepreneurs. How many governments around the world are really focused on attracting and keeping entrepreneurs who want to create jobs? They want to talk about raising the minimum wage in many countries. Business owners aren't doing enough. Well, why not attract business owners? The problem is most Western countries, again, they're so tone deaf that they really just think that everyone's just going to come to them. It's like Adam Carolla says, it's like the old belle of the ball, the old prom queen, and now the prom queen is 50 and never developed herself, or the prom king never developed himself. And they just think they're entitled to everything. And so why is it the United States is actively pushing away people who want to come and create jobs? I mean, they say, oh, okay, come and create jobs, but they're not competitive in any way. The UK, you thought after Brexit they would become more economically competitive. They're raising corporate tax rates. Other countries like New Zealand are threatening to impose new taxes. Why would an entrepreneur, why would an investor want to go there? And when I talk to people and they're saying, oh, I'm thinking of investing in some companies, I'm an angel investor, I say, great, skip those countries, skip the US in particular. So many issues with tax planning. Why would people go there and create jobs? And then they complain to people who already are there. They have to be, taxed and skewered more and more and more. The government doesn't care about these people. All they want to do is extract their wealth, whether it's the taxes, new taxes. You can't argue anymore. It's like staying at a Marriott hotel. You go, they give you terrible service. You can't argue. You're a terrible person. How dare you? The government's no different. So we talked about no consular assistance. We talked about no emergency evacuation. But how about the fact that in this last year, you have seen countries where you can't even leave. Or if you want to come back to your country, you've got to be locked up. I've had numerous folks from Canada saying, we're out of Canada, we're loving it. We don't want to go back and stay in some hotel where they throw a cold roll at you once a day, and you pay a lot of money for the privilege. Now, we can argue quarantines, we can argue all those things. I'm not even going to argue that. I'm going to argue that you overpay in many of these countries, like Canada. You get, one guy said, I literally got a cheese sandwich, one piece of cheese on a stale roll. That was what I got every day for something like $150. You would think the government, if they cared about you, would go and negotiate. They hate business so much, why not go and talk to these hotels? Now, as someone who's negotiated with hotels before for things like conferences, you want to hang yourself after 5 minutes of talking to these people. So maybe that was their problem. But governments being so diplomatic, maybe they're more able to hear the blather and the two-facedness from these hotels than I would be. So why not go and negotiate for your citizens and say, we're not having our citizens paying $150 for a guarding king with a cold roll thrown at their head every day at 1 o'clock. We demand more, and you're going to do it. They can do it for paying $15 an hour. But what even worse than that, you've had countries like Australia. I hate to say it, Uruguay too for a shorter period, but look at Australia. If you're a citizen, you practically can't even leave. In some cases, countries were saying you can't even come in. They tried to do that. Now, that didn't work in most cases for very long, so they introduced the quarantines. But your country doesn't even care about you to say you can't even leave the country. Now, are there some exceptions? Sure. But you want to go somewhere else. You don't want to be stuck here. You don't want to be stuck in our tax regime. You know how many people who have contacted me who, in some countries, have exceptions for this where they understand and they're doing tax waivers. But some people came back to visit their family for a month, and now they're stuck in one of these countries where they've had a hard time getting out or they're locked down. They couldn't go back to their free country, one of the countries that we talk about, the emerging countries, the places where they believe in freedom and lower taxes and keeping more of your own money. They couldn't go back because they got stuck. Do you know how many people I've talked to over the last year now who've had that situation? So imagine you're an Australian citizen. You can't even leave the place. The government doesn't care about you. Now, if I'm missing one, and I'm sure I'm missing a lot, leave a comment below. I'd like to hear which one you think I'm missing. Evidence that the government doesn't care about its citizens. That's what, to me, has really become a revelation to folks who never would have thought of leaving the US or the UK or Canada just 2 or 3 years ago, let alone a decade ago. I've had more people come to me and say, Andrew, never thought I'd be doing this. Never thought I'd be talking to a guy like you. 5 years ago, I thought you were a nut. And when I started doing this, when I started making videos in 2013, when I started writing articles in 2012, I bet a lot more people thought, this guy's crazy. Who's leaving the US? A lot of people still do. But for many people, you're seeing high taxes, restrictions, all kinds of problems. The government doesn't serve you. And that's why I believe that the nomad capitalist lifestyle we talk about is so important. You want to have your second passport so you have options. You have places to go. You've got a country that has to accept you besides the one that you were born in. You've got second residences, places that will let you in. Try and find places that are free, that have lower taxes. I've got people moving to the Cayman Islands, to Panama, to places all over the world right now. And they're looking forward to it because they've realized just how much the country where they were born in finally realized is not concerned about them. They're just concerned about their own governmental oligopoly and preserving their power. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.